Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back the founders of New Media Expo, Dave Sinkin and Rick Calvert.
There's always a slight delay with that mic when we walk out. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Hey, we've got a great couple of presentations for you this morning. I want to first thank our sponsors of New Media Expo. Our gold sponsor, Ford. Thank you very much, Ford. Our silver sponsor, .me. Our bronze sponsors, Overblog, Guinness Black Lager, WordPress.
Who had some Guinness Black Lager last night?
BlackBerry, WeCare.com, Military.com, LiveLab, Army, and Technorati Media.
I know Linda Sherman and Kristen were there for the Go Army workout this morning. Who else was there working? And you got showered and made it back here in time, or are you stinking next to your neighbors? All right. So we're going to get started right now, but I want to tell you two other quick housekeeping things. First, we mentioned yesterday we're going to try to break our Guinness World Record with the most tweets sent out with a hashtag. The folks at We Care are doing a $100,000 charity challenge. So every tweet you send, they're going to donate a dime to your favorite charity, right? So all you have to do is send out a tweet with the handle of your favorite charity, follow We Care, include their handle, and link to the We Charity site, and they'll donate a dime to your favorite charity. It can be any charity you like. So whatever is your favorite, feel free to contribute some money to your charity. And then lastly, one last housekeeping note, everybody is invited to attend the Podcasting Awards tonight. It'll just be in Rio Pavilion 11 right across the way. And then the reception will have some more Guinness Black Lager right in the New Media Lounge across the hall. So hope to see you all there this evening. And Dave?
Well, this morning we've got a very special guest, former chief evangelist for Apple, author of over a dozen books, including Enchantment, Art of the Start, and the new APE author, publisher, and entrepreneur. CEO and co-founder of Alltop.com, Guy Kawasaki, and he's going to be interviewed by our conference director for business, Next Social, and Forbes writer in the Socialized Mobilized column, Mark Fidelman. Everybody, let's give him a big hand and welcome him to the stage. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks,
Boys.
Thank you.
Here we are. Good morning.
Oof. I'm surprised they all got up this early. It's early. How you doing, Guy?
Great. I love Las Vegas. I love new media. I love social media. What's not to love today?
Well, you look a lot younger in person than I expected. You look great.
It's the lighting.
It is good lighting. So you've written a new book called APE.
Yes.
And some people told me that, did you write the book because you're trying to get back at publishers? Why did you write the book?
No, I have very little anger in me. Basically, I wrote a book called Enchantment. And, just Wall Street Journal, New York Times bestseller, just all the good stuff. And I took an order for 500 copies of the ebook version of Enchantment, and my publisher was not able to fill it. Referred the lead to Apple and Barnes & Noble and Nook. And believe it or not, they told her that she had to buy it one line item at a time, 500 times. And I was just so shocked that a publisher could not handle a big sale that I decided to write my next book and self-publish my next book, which was What the Plus, because simultaneously I fell in love with Google Plus. And so I wrote that book and published it myself, and I found out how difficult it is to self-publish a book, particularly if it's a nonfiction book where you have tables and captions and bullet points. And so having the experience of self-publishing What the Plus, I decided to write APE to help people understand self-publishing.
Well, just as a side, I don't know if you know this or not, but Robert Scoble told me it's one of the first books that he's bought in years. Usually a guy like him, he gets the book himself.
Is here? Has he recovered yet?
He's here. And it was one of the first books he wanted to buy and read, so just to let you know about that.
Yeah, but I still gave it to Scoble. So.
But he wanted to buy it.
Yeah, all right.
So he told me.
That's good.
So we talk about self-publishing, you talk about self-publishing, you wrote a book about it. Is there still a kind of a stigma?
Stigma, sure.
To self-publishing?
In the old days, when you self-published a book, or what they call vanity publishing, it was because a traditional, typically New York publisher rejected you. So out of desperation, because you weren't perceived as good enough for any traditional publisher, you did it by yourself. And I think that day is gone. I like to call it artisanal publishing as opposed to self-publishing. Artisanal being the fact that you can control it from end to end, the content, the cover, the design, the marketing. Obviously, when you do control all those aspects, you also gain responsibility. Now you are responsible for the content and the editing and the cover and the layout and all that stuff. So there's a plus and a minus there. But just as, not everybody wants to work for Anheuser-Busch, or not everybody wants to work for McDonald's, or not everybody wants to work for Gallo. There are artisanal winemakers, artisanal brewers, artisanal bakers. I think there's a group of people who want to control the process, and I would call this artisanal publishing.
Okay. But is a stigma because of that? I think it is, but is it also because there's just a lot of crap that's published, and it's hard to differentiate between the crap and the good stuff?
Well, the irony is there's a lot of crap coming out from traditional publishers.
That's true,
too, right?
Can't.
There is going to be a lot of crap because of self-publishing, just as there was a lot of crap because of desktop publishing. And arguably, at any given point in the democratization of information, the people who are successful at that point say that this is going to ruin the business. So I can imagine, I don't know, back in the Middle Ages, somebody probably said, oh my God, Gutenberg has invented a printing press. My God, there's going to be a lot of crap out now, right? Because it's not just scribes, it's not just monks working in monasteries copying the Bible. Someone could print something that's, the Catholic Church doesn't approve of. So it's going to go to hell in a handbasket. And, fast forward to PageMaker and laser writers and Macintoshes, lots of people said this is the end of civilization. There's going to be a lot of crap because of desktop publishing. Fast forward a little more, now there's blogs and websites. There's going to be a lot of crap because anybody can have a blog and a website. So at any given point, the 1%, the established, capitalist pigs, the people in power always say that, this is going to lead to crap. And the fact is, there was crap before, there's going to be crap after. But I personally believe that the more people writing books, the better the business will be. Because you just don't know which will be this breakout book. And the probability of a New York editor acquiring the breakout book is very low. So at least, let 100 flowers blossom and let it all come out. And then let the market decide. I mean, it either sells at Kindle or it doesn't sell at Kindle.
Is there a way to increase your odds if you write a book and then self-publish it? I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about building your personal brand.
I think the key to self-publishing is the understanding that the third stage, which is the marketing of the book, is arguably the hardest part. And it's hardest part because most writers either don't understand marketing or detest marketing. And to me, that's the most important part. And it starts with social media. We live in just a great time for an author to build a platform. The irony, of course, is for many traditional publishers, they will not consider a novice author unless the author comes with his or her own platform, which is totally ass backwards, because if you think about it, what a traditional publisher is supposed to help you do is market your book. But now the traditional publisher is saying, well, we want to see how you can market your book, then we'll acquire you. Well, duh. Who wouldn't want to acquire an author who has 5 million followers? That's not what a traditional publisher is supposed to do. So the key here is now social media, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn. They're fast, they're free, they're ubiquitous. This is the holy grail. It's the trifecta of marketing. And so every one of us can build a platform. It helps to have a history. It helps to have a pre-existing reputation and brand. But I think anybody can build a platform by establishing themselves as a sector expert. So, let's take a hypothetical, the harder case, which is a novelist. Let's say you're a mystery and thriller novelist breaking out into the business. So what I think you should do is you should establish yourself as an expert in criminology and forensics.
And the way you do that is you get on Google Plus and you get on Twitter and Facebook, and you start linking to stories. That, the New England Journal of Medicine just came out with a new study about DNA analysis, or there's a news breaking story about some school in Florida where they discovered a lot of bodies, of kids who were beaten in the school and stuff like that. So you constantly post links to things that are relevant for your niche or your market, and you become this expert so that when you put out your mystery crime thriller, people already understand, yeah, this person understands forensics and crime and pathology. We should read his book. We should read her book.
Great. And, publishing a self-published book, what have you learned after, it's gone into the wild now? I mean, is there any lessons that, if you write an after chapter?
It's only been a month since APE came out, and I'll tell you, I learned something. Number one, I asked people to post reviews immediately when the book was available. Amazon will only let people post reviews as soon as the book is officially for sale. So what I did is 5 hours before midnight on December 10th or 9th, I asked the people who had read the book as reviewers and copy editors to post reviews. So I woke up the next morning, there were 50 reviews already, which is remarkable. None of this was paid for. None of this is fake Guy Kawasaki accounts. And so what I learned was I had sent out APE to first of all, I asked to go down, just to show you how I use social media for APE. When I first had a solid outline of the book, I asked 4 million of my closest friends to go to a Google Doc and look at the Google Doc outline and give me comments about holes in the outline. So that was about 6 months before I finished. When I was close to being finished, I had what I considered a very solid manuscript. I sent out another post to 4 million of my closest friends saying, I would like you to read the entire manuscript, copy edit it, any content editing, anything you want. Just tell me what you want changed. So I sent that out to 4 million people. 250 people said yes, they would do it. I sent out the full Word document to 250 people. If you told that to a traditional publisher, you told that to your editor in New York, I'm going to send out to 250 total strangers in Lithuania and Croatia and, Nairobi, that I'm going to send out my manuscript and I'm going to let them have the whole thing and comment and send it back. They would freaking have an aneurysm, right? So I do that. Of the 250, roughly 60 actually gave me full comments in the Word document. I entered all those comments. And then right before the book was done, I also sent it to another 1,200 people asking them to review it as bloggers. And so I had this built-in group of people who had read the book prior to it being available at Amazon, and so that's how I could ensure that I had so many reviewers out the gate. And I don't think most traditional publishers would even let an author do that because they'd be so worried that the book would, sort of be in the public domain out the gate.
Yeah, I think that's important because you actually build an audience that'll buy your book day one,
that
right?
Too.
I mean, that's the...
Well, it also, I'll tell you another trick. So all the people who did the copy editing, there's a part of the acknowledgments of APE where I list every one of them. So I figure if nothing else, for sure I'll sell 60 copies because, actually I gave them copies anyway, but I figured they'll probably buy at least 60 copies to give to their mothers and fathers saying, look, I'm in this book. So that was the first 60 copies sold probably.
Yeah, that's very smart. Let's switch subjects.
Okay.
Okay, one of my favorite topics is Apple.
All right, me too.
Facebook, Google. So, Apple's creating all these social devices, but they're not social themselves.
No, they're antisocial.
Isn't that ironic, though?
It's bizarre. There is no social media presence for Apple. Apple is, I have no more affiliation with Apple. My closest affiliation with Apple is I go to the Palo Alto, the University Avenue store, and I go to the Stanford Shopping Center store, and they treat me very well because some of the old timers realize who I am. But other than that, I stand in line, I pay full retail just like any other schmo. Some people think that, that Tim Cook personally delivers every new Apple device to my house whenever they ship it. Nothing could be further than the truth. So I really have no connection to Apple anymore. I truly do love Apple, but shall I just say that I just don't agree with some stuff they've done. This latest iPhone 5, 18 months later, they're on 4G LTE. I mean, give me a break, right? They decide, I would love to have been in the room where they decided to change the little connector for the cable.
Yeah.
Like what, can you just see them saying, okay, so like what can we do? There's like 100 million docks and cables and stuff in cars, and what could we do to really screw everybody? Why don't we change the connector, right? Why don't we change the connector? Why don't we use something small and tiny? And somebody might say, well, why don't we go with the micro USB? No. There's too many of those out already. And now how can we make this a feature, not a bug? And they'll say, oh, you can plug this in upside down or right side up. That's a key selling point. And I can't, just from an ecological standpoint, to obsolete all those cables and all those docks and all those things in Ford cars that connect to you and all this, like, what was the gain? I mean, and if you're a Macintosh owner, why did they have to change the magnetic dock there? I mean, like, what was the gain there? I understand. So you want to make $29 on a 50-cent connector. Okay. But why don't you just be honest? So we're screwing you because we want $29 more from you. I mean, I just don't understand some of those things. But, inside that engineering meeting, they convinced themselves they had a good reason. Like, there must be a better way. People should be able to plug their connectors in upside down or right side up. We need to lead the industry in this kind of connector. I can't wrap my mind around that.
Well, I noticed when we were meeting backstage that you have an Android now.
I am. I'm an Android boy.
Are you more in touch?
Truth be known, and I've been telling this to people for like a year and a half. I don't know why it became a big story about a month ago. I don't use any iOS devices. Zero. None. My tablet is a Nexus 7. The reason why I use a Nexus 7 is because I love the 7-inch format. My test for the proper size format for a tablet is I want the largest screen that when you fall asleep and it falls on your face cannot hurt you. And so I think a 10.1 has hurt me. A 10-inch display has hurt me. 7-inch is just small enough so that when I fall asleep, it doesn't hurt me. So I love my Nexus 7. The phone that I use is here it is, a Samsung Galaxy Note 2. I just switched this from a Samsung Galaxy S3. The reason why I like Android is, well, I have several reasons. One, I love multiple windows, multiple apps running live. I love the widgets of Android. I love that you go to the place where it lists all the apps and they're alphabetically listed. You don't have to search through folders or find apps. I love NFC. And this thing has a stylus, which I think is actually very useful. There are just aspects of Android. Oh, I also love to be able to choose my default browser. What a concept. I might not like Safari. I like Chrome. So if I'd like to click on a link, could you just boot Chrome for me instead of Safari? What a concept, huh? Wow, is that too much to ask? I could just go on and on about Android. Real men use Android. Let's face it.
Wow. Wow. So are you in touch? Are you giving advice to Google executives? Are you in touch with?
I talk to Vic and Bradley pretty often, but basically they're always telling me, "Yeah, guy, we understand your needs." I mean, I can't. I have about 1,000 times more communication with Google than Apple.
Why do you think that is? Is Apple just too into themselves? If you're outside the Apple family, it's like you're persona non grata?
It's kind of like LBJ saying you're either in the tent pissing out or you're outside the tent pissing in. So I guess I'm outside the tent pissing in. At this point in my life, you may have noticed, I really don't give a shit what people think. So now this is an enormously liberating feeling. And so, I don't really care. I mean, I don't think Tim Cook even knows who I am. So, what does he care if I criticize his connector strategy? So, I just like to tell it like it is. I'm 58 years old. I'm 2/3 dead already. So,
What do you have to lose?
Yeah, like, I'm not going to waste time. And you could also see me on social media. When people attack me and when people do things, I just block them. I don't try to kiss up to them. I just screw them. I block a lot of people. I'll tell you, the people that I block the most are these just total troll wussies. I would like to use the P word there, but I'll use the W word. And there's like a small number of people on social media who have such a feeling of entitlement. And I'll give you an example. So Google is giving away copies of What the Plus, okay? And so you can get it from Google for free all day long. And so they put a little, banner, well, not banner, a little gift that said, click here to get What the Plus for free, as a gift to all Google Plus users. So somebody says, how dare Google do this? They said there would be no ads on Google Plus. And now I see this thing where I can get a free copy of What the Plus. How dare Google do that? Basically, that guy's saying, my time is so important, and my screen space, my white space is so important. I have such a feeling of entitlement. How dare Google, which is hosting my pictures, doing my email, handling my social media, giving me search results, how dare Google put a little gift there? I cannot relate to that attitude. To me, there's parts of Google Plus I don't like. There are parts of Facebook I don't like. Like, why do they only send my post to 10% of the people who volunteered to see my post? I can't wrap my mind around that. It's the same guy who did the Apple connector strategy. So,
they hired him away.
What goes through their brain thinking that? And so these people with entitlement, I can't stand that thought. To me, no matter how much you dislike Google Plus or Pinterest or LinkedIn or whatever, you're not paying. I mean, they're providing a tremendous service to you. So the metaphor I like to use is, if somebody invites you to their house for dinner, you don't show up and say, you're not serving what I like, right? This is a dinner. You are a guest in someone's house. So shut up and eat or leave.
All right. So going back to Apple, for just the last question about Apple.
Yeah.
With Steve Jobs gone, it seems like Apple without Steve Jobs is a different Apple than Apple with Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Now that he's gone, what do you think is going to happen going forward?
That's a good question. We have to visit this on several levels. For one factor is, no human being could follow Steve Jobs. Let's just be honest. So that's number one. Number two, with Steve gone, I think when you look back, any generation always looks back and says, when I was a kid, we didn't do stuff like that, right? So I say to my kids, when I was a kid, I never did stuff like this. I was respectful. I was home. We ate dinner at the table. We played, board games at night. None of this stuff where you're constantly on your phone and all that. And they're going to tell their kids, when I was a kid, we were on our phones, but at least we were at the dinner table. So
exactly what's going to happen.
Every generation looks back and says, when I was, the good old days is always better. So now, of course, there's a tendency to think the good old days was better. But, Steve made some mistakes too, right? I'll point out, when the iPhone was first introduced, there was a decree that there would be no third-party apps. And Apple said, we're not going to allow third-party apps because a phone needs to be secure and reliable. And if we open up for third-party apps, your phone will be not secure and not reliable. Now, one could ask the logical question at that press conference, well, if your phone is so valuable and needs to be secure and reliable, what about our computers, which have thousands of third-party apps? But nobody's going to ask that in the reality distortion fields. Okay, so fast forward a year later, and now Apple announces we're going to bless third-party apps. We're going to have a store. We're going to have this, SDKs. We're going to have everything to make it possible for third-party apps. They did a 180-degree reversal in 1 year. So Steve can make mistakes. He did make mistakes. I have to believe that even up to the iPhone 5, many of the decisions were made with Steve. Like, I bet you Steve was in on the, let's change the connector thing. Certainly he was there on the let's change the connector for the Macintosh laptops, right? So some of it may be bad decisions that were made under his watch that are just coming to market now that we're blaming on Tim Cook, which is probably unfair. Now, having said that, to me, before Apple was a really efficient thing. Now, if you have a really smart and visionary dictator, a dictatorship is very efficient. It's just the odds of having a smart, visionary dictator are low, right? But if you have one, that's the perfect situation. So before, all decisions came to Steve, right? Dad made the decision. And Dad was so freaking smart, he was right most of the time. That is a really efficient system. Now, Dad is gone. So now all the kids have to fight, right? So either there's going to be fighting, or, God help us, Apple will become a marketing-driven company. And I'm using air quotes because I think that will be the death of Apple. So when you start hearing that Apple is doing focus groups to decide whether they should change connectors, and they're going to have these tests, I think that's the beginning of the end of Apple. Because Apple is in the business of creating things for people before they realize they need it.
But wasn't that from Steve Jobs' taste?
Absolutely, it was from Steve Jobs' taste.
He created things that he would use, and he had such great taste that the rest of us just fell in line.
And it's remarkable because if you think about it, to take an extreme, when you look at the industrial design of a company like HP, which I love, right? HP created the Valley. You look at the industrial design of HP, and you look at the industrial design of Apple, and you have to ask yourself, why does HP produce such ugly stuff? Like, is Johnny Ive, I love Johnny Ive, is Johnny Ive the only person in the world with taste? Is it only Johnny and Steve that have taste? Like, can't every other consumer electronics company look at Apple's example and say, wow, so we need to make things thin and beautiful and light and aluminum. Like, how hard is it? So why does all the other consumer companies still create thick, black, ugly piece of crap laptops? Why? I mean, if it was the day after the first Air came out, okay, HP, you got 18 months to fix your laptop, but the Air has been out forever. Why do people still have ugly, thick, black laptops? What? Just answer me that question. It cannot be that Johnny Ive is the only person who can think thin. So it's a matter of taste, right? So at the top of these companies, there is nobody who says that design is shit. That's the problem. Because none of them have the contextual, that's Scoble's favorite word, the contextual ability to say you're producing shit. Why is that? I don't understand. And I think it's particularly true for Japanese consumer electronics company. I mean, look at the user interface of those companies. I mean, just even try to change the picture size of your camera, the file size, for fine, medium, or low. I don't understand why it is so hard to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think some of these companies, it's an engineering-driven culture, not a design-driven culture, and that's why you end up with these big, bricks.
But Apple is engineering and design-driven.
It's just better designers, maybe.
Well, yeah.
So let's move to social media. I noticed you're kind of opinionated up here, so I'd love to ask you this question.
Yes.
What are some of the dumbest things you've seen in social media?
The dumbest things.
Yeah, what are people doing that you're like, oh, I can't believe it? I mean, we have a social crowd out here, so this has got to be an interesting.
Okay, so some things I don't, but I don't want you all tweeting, guys, such an angry old man. I don't want
we got a few positive questions.
45 minutes of bitching here. I'm a really happy guy. I mean, fundamentally, I'm a very happy person. It's just that, rarely, I have to say, I love this kind of format, fireside chat, because usually I'm giving keynotes and it's totally scripted and, whatever. This, I can just let it rip. of course, my speaking agent company is in the audience. I have to be a little careful, because right after this speech, they're going to come to me and say, "Guy, don't you ever do what you just did for a paid gig," okay? Yeah. But anyway, so some things I don't understand about social media.
Or you don't like. I mean, you see this behavior, right?
So
you don't like
one,
the trolls.
Okay, number one, Facebook. I don't understand EdgeRank. With the caveat that I realize I'm a guest in Facebook's house, right? But I don't understand if people have voluntarily opted in to subscribe, friend, follow me, why are you deciding to only give 10% of those followers the ability to see my posts? I just don't understand that. It would be different if it was involuntary, something you're ramming down their throat, but they're saying, I want to see what Guy is doing. Why are you doing that to me? And so, one of the big debates is Google Plus has 1/4, 1/5, pick a number, as many people as Facebook. So Google Plus is a ghost town and Facebook is this vibrant place, right? But to me, the way I do the math is, so let's say that Facebook has 1 billion people and Google Plus has 100 million. So 10 times bigger. But with EdgeRank, only 1/10 of the people can see your posts. So in my mind, if you're 10 times bigger, but only 1 of 10 can see your posts, it's the same size.
Right.
Well, am I missing something with that logic? So to me, Google Plus is this huge success. And, for a while, I was getting far fewer comments on Google Plus. So I sent an email to my main man, Vic, and I said, Vic, are you guys doing some EdgeRank thing where, you and Matt Cutts are deciding who sees my post? He said, no, absolutely. We're absolutely not doing that. Anybody can see your post who has circled you. I think that's a key difference. Why Google doesn't emphasize that is amazing to me. I think that is a huge selling point for Google.
Well, maybe they will after this talk. They'll probably start talking about it, because that's important to me as well.
So that's one thing. I wish that my close friends at Buffer could work with Google+. In other words, I wish there was an API so that external apps could post to Google+. I understand Google's point that that opens up to spamming and repetition and all that, but for someone like me, the ability to schedule my posts in advance is crucial. So I would love to have Buffer work with Google+. Disclosure, conflict of interest, I advise Buffer, okay? So right now, the closest thing you can do to that is to use a Chrome extension called DoShare. So DoShare, you can schedule your Google Plus posts in advance, but Chrome has to be running. So my problem for that is I would have liked to have scheduled posts to occur right now while I'm on stage, but my laptop is off in my bag someplace, and so Chrome isn't running, so it cannot post. That's the beauty of Buffer working with Twitter's API, which, I don't have to have my laptop open. It's scheduled in the cloud. So I think that would be my dream wish. If Santa said, Guy, you can have one social media gift for Christmas, it would be to be able to post to Google Plus from outside of Google Plus. In a sense, what I want is I want the tweet deck of Google Plus, or I want the Buffer of Google Plus.
Okay, great. Let's talk about your social media strategy. You've done a good job. You've accumulated 4 million fans. Is that the number? I don't know what it is today.
Well, not that I know these numbers well, but I have 286,000 subscribers on Facebook. I have 1.2 million on Twitter, and I have 3.7 million on Google+. Now, just to put that into context, the 286,000 in Facebook, that's purely organic because, there is no suggested user list. The 1.2 million in Twitter is purely organic because I was never a suggested user of Twitter. And the Google Plus is 3.7 million, and I honestly attribute that to being a suggested user at Google Plus. So I would be nowhere near that if I were not suggested user. I'll explain my social media strategy. For me, social media is a means to an end. It's not because I'm trying to find more friends. I have all the friends I can handle. Actually, I have 4 children and a wife, so I'm not looking for any more interaction than what I have. So, and I have to tell you, a lot of people in this audience and in the social media business, they just absolutely freak out when I say that, because I'm supposed to say, yeah, you know, I'm trying to build personal relationships, kumbaya, and, you know, just meeting wonderful people. Like, they want me to be some eHarmony ad for social media. But truly, I'm more like hot or not for social media. And so this is my social media strategy. Social media for me is a means to an end. So the question is, what's the end? The end is, I want to have a large following so that sporadically I can use social media to promote whatever I want to promote. E.g., new book. E.g., buffer. E.g., you know, whoever I'm advising, I'm involving in. So that's my model. And then you might ask, well, what's the purpose of promoting buffer and, you know, these companies that you advise? And the answer to that is, honestly, liquidity. And so you ask, well, why do I want liquidity? It's because I have 4 children, they're all in private school.
Yeah.
So, you know, believe it or not, you know, you're interviewing a person who quit Apple twice. If I had stayed at Apple either time, I would not be on this panel right now, because I would be insufferable, and I would more insufferable, and I would be paranoid, and I wouldn't say anything in public. You know, have you ever interviewed an Apple person in public? No.
Even in private, they're not saying much.
Right. So the metaphor for my social media model is NPR. I love NPR. Truly love NPR. My favorite NPR show is Wait, Don't Tell Me. And it is one of my fantasies to someday be on Wait, Don't Tell Me. So if anybody works for NPR or knows them, please try to get me on. So I love Wait, Don't Tell Me. I love Fresh Air. I love Tech Nation. I love This American Life. Okay, so my analysis of NPR is, NPR provides great content 365 days a year. Great content. I constantly listen to NPR. And so every once in a while, because of the great content, they have to have a business model. So they run a telethon, right? Now, I don't know anybody who likes the telethon, right? So, you know, it's basically, the people at Intel have agreed for dollar match for the next $1,000. So call in and give $10. And if you give $12, we will give you the Eton radio so that in case of a nuclear war, you can hear how the world is ending, right? You know, I don't need the Eton. If there's a nuclear attack, fine, you know, we'll die. Okay. So to me, the NPR model is provide great content. You earn the privilege of then promoting from time to time your telethon. That's the model I use. I am trying to constantly provide great content about a plethora of topics, basically anything that strikes my fancy as interesting. And so by providing this great content, I become a curator. And as a curator, I'm trying to add value. I'm finding stuff that you would not have found, or you would have found later. And so what I'm trying to do is build this loyalty so that you follow me to get all this great content, so that once every year when I ship a book, you don't mind me promoting APE to you. I'm going to ram APE down your throat, okay?
That's
just
a tweet.
like NPR rams a telethon down your throat. Hopefully some of you will feel the feeling of reciprocation that Guy has provided me such great content all year that the least I can do for him is buy his $10 book.
Okay.
So that's the model, for better or for worse.
You know, I want to open it up to the audience, if you don't mind.
Sure,
I mean, I'm sure there's some questions in the audience that...
Let her rip.
Okay. So we're going to take questions from the audience. Do we have a mic? Actually, there's a mic stand. So if you want to stand in line behind that mic, if you have questions for Guy.
Hi. Hello. Thank you for being here. Quick question. If, let's say Apple takes a dive and they ask you to come back as top dog, complete creative, would you take it?
First of all, that would be the only situation under which Apple would ask me to come back. So the last time that I went back to Apple was a very similar situation. Apple was supposed to die. And honestly, if Apple called, I would go. I would go. There are 3 companies in the world I would work for today: Apple, Google, and Nike. So if any of you work for any of the 3 of them, let them know. Now, I honestly don't want to be CEO. I am not qualified to be CEO. I have no interest in being CEO. I cannot handle being CEO. As I said, I have 4 children. I would like to at any of those three companies, I would take a fellowship. So it would be a non-line management position, but a fellowship where I'm supposed to just help them, advise them, and being sort of evangelist for the company. I would do it for any of those three companies because I love those three companies. The least likely to happen is Apple, though, because
3 strikes and you're out?
I would, yeah, well, I mean, I just...
They're arrogant.
The first thing I would do is we'd have a meeting and we'd say, okay, so like, we're going to go back to a standard 30-pin connector, right, guys? I mean, that's, so don't hold your breath for any of those three happening. But those are the three companies I would work for.
Okay, great. Next question.
Yes.
You've talked a lot about Google and Apple. I'm curious your thoughts on what Microsoft's done recently with Windows 8, the Windows Phone, Surface, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for much of my career at Apple, we fought the problem that Macintosh was irrelevant, right? And it just warms my heart that now there's arguments about Microsoft being irrelevant. And this just kind of proves that if you wait by the side of the river long enough, your enemy will come floating by. Now, having said that, I will tell you that I have done work for Microsoft and for Apple, or for Microsoft, not Apple, but the Microsoft employee is an absolute pleasure to work with, truly. They are very, very accommodating, very nice, very humble. They're very easy to work with. I truly love the Microsoft employees. I think it's a matter of taste, that someone needs to say, this sucks and this doesn't suck. I don't know if there's someone who can do that. Steve Ballmer thinks that a thin Toshiba is an Air. It's hard to deal with that. So that's my thing. I have lots of friends at Microsoft. I really like the employees, but the industrial design and user interface just leaves me cold. I looked at Surface, at the Stafford Shopping Center, the Microsoft store is right next to the Apple store. So one day I went into the Microsoft store. I just couldn't handle it. It was like a religious issue, whatever. And I tried Windows 8 on a phone. I love the tiles thing. And I mean, the live tiles is kind of like an Android widget, right? But for me, for a phone, the apps I have to have on a phone are Evernote, Dropbox, TripIt, Life 360, Speed Test. Of course, you need email and Chrome, right? And Google+. And so I don't think you can get all of those for a Windows 8 phone yet. So.
Okay, next question.
Yes.
Hi, Guy. Social media seems to be defined by blogs, Facebook, and Twitter in almost every PowerPoint we see. And LinkedIn seems to be getting left off.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that is. People don't think of it as social enough.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what your take is on LinkedIn.
So LinkedIn is trying, right? So LinkedIn now, you can post things just like Google Plus or Facebook, right? So that's happening. I think that's a few months old. Right now, the person with the most followers there is Richard Branson. He has like 1,000,001 followers. Barack Obama has about 800,000. I could tell you I'm number 17 roughly, and I have about 80-something thousand. So, that's how fast you go from 1 million to 87,000 is number 17. I think that, most companies that are successful, you're known for one thing, right? So Volvo equals safety. Volvo is not going to equal sexiness, no matter how much it tries, right? So LinkedIn, you think of LinkedIn as for making connections for job hunting and business development. And it's hard to wrap your mind around thinking of LinkedIn as a social media site. So in What the Plus, one of the things I try to help people do is, how do you categorize all these options? So, I like to use alliteration. So the categorization I use is that Facebook is for people that you went to high school with, people that you went to college with, people that you are related to, and people you had sex with. Okay, so that's Facebook. So Facebook is for people. Write that down, all right? And I think that Twitter is for perspectives, where you explain your perspective to the world. The line at Starbucks is long. There's been an earthquake in Santiago, right? I'm frustrated. Okay, so it's perspective. So that's Twitter. Google Plus, I would make the case that the P word there is passion. So at Google Plus, the odds are that the people you know are not there yet. But you can meet a whole set of friends. As you get older, you may want to diverge from your college and high school classmates in interests. God help you. I hope you do, right? So as you diverge from your college and high school classmates, you develop different passions. So the way you should approach Google Plus is, that's the place where I explore my passions. If you cannot share interests with your high school classmates, now you love photography and they don't, if you go to Google Plus and type in photography, you will find a great photography community. If you typed in knitting, you will find a great knitting community. So you do passions on Google Plus. And for LinkedIn, the only P word I could come out with for LinkedIn is pimping. So you go to LinkedIn and you pimp. You find business development. You find people who can help you get jobs. It's for pimping and being pimped. And I don't say that in a pejorative way. It's just, when you want to stick with P's, at some point you get desperate. So LinkedIn is for pimping. Facebook is for people. Twitter is for perspectives. And Google Plus is for passions. And that's how I would explain the world.
We've got time for one. We've got time for one more question, but Guy, I don't know if you're going to stick around. He's got another session in the business next area. You should go visit him there. But we got time for one more question.
Guy, thank you so much for your generosity in being here today.
Thank you.
You've been around the technology and the social media sphere for so long, but it's moving so fast. What do you see for the next 5 years? What do you see coming around the pike?
You know what? That is the question I dread the most, because frankly, I don't think anybody can answer. And only an egomaniac and a troll would answer that question. And I don't consider myself either of those two things. Just to put yourself back in history, 5 years ago, people said MySpace would control the world. People were saying, these so-called experts were saying MySpace would be the operating system of the internet. Can you remember that statement? Now, fast forward 5 years later, MySpace is a $30 million write-off, right? And so 5 years from now, will Facebook be dominant? I don't know. So I don't think anybody can predict 5 years in advance. For all, I hope Google Plus is dominant 5 years from now. So I think it's impossible to say 5 years, 3 years, maybe 1 year. I would have not even predicted the success of Pinterest. So it's just so hard to do that. So, in the venture capital business, basically what we do is we make 20 bets. And of the 20 bets, 1 or 2 are successful. And so you're asked, why did you pick these 2 that were successful? You say, well, it's because of my experience as a venture capitalist. I looked at that team and I knew that was a good team. I looked at the market, I knew that was a good market. I looked at their business model. I knew that that was a rising tide, a hockey stick growth market. And then if the person presses you and say, well, what about the other 18 bets that you made? The web vans where you put in $420 million so that people could buy broccoli online. Why did you invest in that? You say, just to tell you the truth, that wasn't me, that was my partners at my firm. I told them not to do that dumbass deal. And so that is my answer to you, that, there's no way to tell. So what you should do is make a lot of predictions. Just ask Robert Scoble. Every company he meets, he says, this is going to be the next big thing. And then later on, he goes back and says, see, I told you Pinterest was going to be successful. I love Scoble. I love that approach. But that's the only way. There is no way to predict. There's no way to predict.
That's all we have time for. I really want to thank you for participating.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. You did a great job.
Thank you.